Akanes Invades Minthini's Shoe Collection with a twist. Episode-2. The ripple effect revealed. Unexpected reunions and forward. Ashen ever. Their platform had reached thousands of users, becoming a beacon of support for students and young entrepreneurs. Despite their success, they made sure to prioritize their friendship, meeting regularly to reflect on their journey and brainstorm new ideas. One afternoon, while discussing an upcoming event at a local college, Minthini received an unexpected phone call from an old childhood friend, Priya. Surprised, Minthini stepped aside to take the call. Priya had heard about Journey Together and was deeply inspired by their work. She wanted to reconnect and attend the event, hinting at a potential collaboration with her new startup. Excited, Minthini shared the news with Akanes. Priya was my best friend in school. We drifted apart when she moved to another city. I can't believe she wants to collaborate with us. Akanes smiled. Sounds like a great opportunity. Maybe this reunion is a part of something bigger. The day of the college event arrived, and the atmosphere was electric. Students buzzed with excitement as they filled the auditorium, eager to hear from Akanes and Minthini. Their workshop focused on building resilience through change, a topic close to their hearts given their own extraordinary journey. As they wrapped up the workshop, Minthini spotted Priya in the crowd. The two friends embraced, laughter and nostalgia bubbling between them. Akanes joined them, and they immediately clicked. Priya's energy and enthusiasm were contagious, and the trio spent hours after the event discussing life, work, and possibilities for collaboration. Priya explained her startup, which focused on using technology to provide mental health resources for young people. Her mission aligned perfectly with the goals of Journey Together, making it clear that this collaboration could be something special. After several weeks of planning, Akanes, Minthini, and Priya decided to merge their initiatives. Together, they created a new arm of Journey Together that focused on mental health and wellness. They hosted webinars and workshops that addressed the emotional challenges of navigating academic and professional life. The integration of these resources proved to be a hit, with users praising the holistic approach. During this time, Minthini also noticed how Akanes seemed to be opening up more. In the early days of their body swap, he had been a stoic figure, focused on his business with little room for vulnerability. Now, he shared his thoughts and emotions more freely, especially when discussing the importance of mental health. This change hadn't gone unnoticed by Priya either, who admired Akanes's growth and often engaged him in deep, meaningful conversations. As their collaboration flourished, so did their friendship. The three of them became an inseparable trio, spending more time together outside of work. They shared meals, went on hikes, and laughed over shared memories and inside jokes. For Minthini, it was a joy to reconnect with Priya, and for Akanes, it was refreshing to have a new friend who challenged him to think differently. However, not everything was smooth sailing. As their platform grew, so did the challenges. Running such a large-scale project required more time, energy, and resources than they had anticipated. Burnout started to creep in, and both Minthini and Akanes found themselves stretched thin. Priya, ever the optimist, encouraged them to practice what they preached by prioritizing their own well-being. One evening, after an exhausting day, the three of them gathered at Minthini's apartment for a much-needed break. Over dinner, Priya proposed a bold idea. We've been so focused on the platform, but I think it's time we take a step back and reflect on our own journeys. What if we each take a few days off, recharge, and come back with fresh energy? Akanes hesitated, his mind racing with deadlines and commitments. But Minthini, exhausted yet intrigued, agreed. I think you're right, Priya. We need to remind ourselves why we started this in the first place. We can't pour from an empty cup. Reluctantly, Akanes agreed too. Over the next week, each of them took time for themselves. Minthini traveled to her family's countryside home, reconnecting with nature and old memories. Akanes visited his sister, spending quality time that he had long neglected, enjoying simple moments like watching movies and playing games. Priya attended a wellness retreat, recharging her energy and focus. When they returned, the difference was palpable. They were re-energized, filled with new ideas and a renewed sense of purpose. Their break had reminded them of the importance of balance and self-care, not just for their users but for themselves as well. With a fresh perspective, they decided to expand, journey together, further, adding more wellness resources and advocating for mental health awareness alongside academic and business guidance. Their initiative became even more impactful, drawing the attention of larger organizations and media outlets. As they continued to grow, Akanes, Minthini, and Priya ECT with Minthini's old friend Priya, sparking a new collaboration focused on mental health. Their friendship deepens as they navigate new challenges, learning the importance of balance and self-care in the process. The success of Journey Together had surpassed anything Akanes and Minthini could have imagined. What started as a mentorship program had now grown into a multifaceted platform, offering resources for academics, business, and mental health. Akanes, Minthini, and Priya had become influential figures, regularly invited to speak at conferences, collaborate with organizations, and expand their reach. However, behind the scenes, the mounting pressure of running such a large platform began to take a toll. Akanes, once so focused and driven, started feeling the weight of his responsibilities. The constant demands of running DMK, managing Journey Together, and maintaining a personal life left him exhausted. He found himself working late into the night, juggling meetings and feeling more isolated than ever. Minthini, too, was feeling the strain. While she loved the work they were doing, balancing her studies, passion project, and the platform was overwhelming. The drive that had once fueled her now felt like a burden, and she struggled to find time for herself. Priya noticed the tension between her friends and, ever the peacemaker, tried to keep everyone grounded, but even her optimism couldn't prevent the cracks from forming. One evening, after a particularly stressful day, Akanes, Minthini, and Priya met at the usual cafe for what had become their weekly catch-up. But instead of the usual light-hearted conversations, there was a palpable tension in the air. "I'm not sure how much longer I can keep doing this," Akanes admitted, running his hand through his hair. "I'm stretched too thin. Between DMK, this platform, and my personal life, I feel like I'm losing myself." Minthini nodded in agreement. "I've been feeling the same way. I love what we've built, but I can't help but wonder if we're trying to do too much at once." Priya, sensing the weight of their emotions, spoke up. "Maybe it's time to rethink our approach. We've been pushing ourselves to the limit, and we've done incredible things. But we need to remember why we started this in the first place, to help others, not to burn ourselves out." There was a long pause as the reality of their situation sank in. They had been so focused on building and growing Journey Together, that they had forgotten to take care of themselves. It was a turning point, one that forced them to confront their limitations. After much discussion, they made a decision that felt both difficult and necessary. They would scale back their involvement in Journey Together. Rather than running every aspect of the platform themselves, they would hire a dedicated team to manage day-to-day operations. This would allow them to step back, focus on their individual paths, and regain a sense of balance. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity as they found the right team members to take over key roles within the platform. It wasn't easy to let go of something they had poured their hearts into, but it was clear that this was the only way forward. As the new team settled in, Akanes, Minthini, and Priya gradually adjusted to their new roles as advisors. They still contributed to the platform, but the pressure to oversee every detail was gone. The time they had reclaimed allowed them to focus on other areas of their lives. Akanes began devoting more energy to DMK, revitalizing the business with new strategies and ideas that had been on hold. He also reconnected with his family, rediscovering the joy of spending time with them without the constant distraction of work. Minthini threw herself into her studies and passion project, finally completing the manuscript she had abandoned so many years ago. She found peace in the creative process, allowing her mind to wander and create without the constant pressure of deadlines. Priya, meanwhile, continued to work on her mental health startup, which had now become a cornerstone of the wellness section of Journey Together. She remained the heart of their trio, always encouraging Akanes and Minthini to take things one step at a time. One day, months after they had scaled back their involvement, they all met again at the same cafe. This time, the atmosphere was different, lighter, more relaxed. They laughed, shared stories about their individual projects, and marveled at how far they had come. "I feel like we made the right choice," Minthini said, sipping her coffee. "It was hard to step back, but it's given me so much clarity." Akanes nodded. "I agree. I was afraid of letting go, but it turns out that giving ourselves space has made everything better. The platform is still thriving, and we're all in a better place." Priya smiled, her eyes twinkling. "We needed to trust that what we built was strong enough to continue without us micromanaging every detail. And now, we can focus on what really matters: ourselves, our passions, and the people we care about." As they sat there, reflecting on their journey, it became clear that this was not the end, it was simply a new chapter. They had learned that true success wasn't about constantly pushing for more. It was about finding balance, knowing when to step back, and trusting that the foundation they had built was strong enough to stand on its own. Together, they toasted to new beginnings, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, they had the resilience, wisdom, and friendship to face them. Owing space for personal growth and reflection. Yet, there was still an unspoken feeling that their journey wasn't quite over, that there was something more waiting for them. One evening, Minthini was working late in her apartment, reading through some notes for her studies. As she sipped her tea, a sudden idea hit her. The body swap experience that had brought her and Akanes together kept resurfacing in her mind. It was an extraordinary story, something neither of them had spoken about to anyone else. But what if sharing their experience could help others? She grabbed her phone and called Akanes. "Akanes, do you ever think about what happened to us?" The body swap. Akanes paused on the other end. "All the time. I never really understood why it happened, but it changed me." "Why do you ask?" Minthini hesitated for a moment, then said, "What if we told our story? I mean, not just to each other, but to the world. There's something powerful in what we went through, something that could inspire others." Akanes was silent for a moment. "You want to make it public. People might not believe it, Minthini." "I know," she replied. "But it's not about whether they believe the literal event. It's about the message. We learn so much about empathy, resilience, and how stepping into someone else's shoes can change everything. We can tell the story as a metaphor, a way to inspire people to understand each other's perspectives." Akanes mulled it over, then nodded. "You're right. It's time. Let's do it." They decided to bring Priya into the conversation. As the creative mind of the trio, Priya had a natural ability to frame ideas in compelling ways. When they shared their plan with her, she was immediately on board. "You're both brilliant," Priya said with excitement. This story could be a game changer. We'll frame it as a narrative about empathy, self-discovery, and how life's unexpected challenges can lead to growth. With the shared vision clear, the trio began outlining the story. Minthini took charge of writing the first draft, drawing from her personal experience of navigating Akanes' world, the pressures of his business, the weight of his responsibilities, and the insights she gained about her own resilience. Akanes contributed by reflecting on what it had been like to live in Minthini's shoes, understanding the struggles of being a student, the self-doubt, and the societal expectations that weighed on her. Priya provided guidance on how to shape the story into something both heartfelt and engaging. As the narrative took form, they decided to present it as a book, part memoir, part self-help. They called it In Each Other's Shoes*, a title that encapsulated the core of their experience. The story wasn't just about a fantastical body swap, it was about learning to see the world through someone else's eyes. When the manuscript was completed, they pitched it to a publisher. To their surprise, the book was picked up almost immediately. The publisher loved the fresh and unique angle, seeing the potential in a story that combined personal transformation with a larger message about empathy and understanding. The trio was ecstatic, but they were also nervous. This was the most personal thing they had ever shared with the world. The weeks leading up to the book launch were a whirlwind of excitement and anxiety. Akanes, Minthini, and Priya made appearances on podcasts, gave interviews, and promoted the book on social media. Their platform, Journey Together, played a key role in the promotion, as their existing audience eagerly awaited the book's release. Finally, the day arrived. In Each Other's Shoes hit the shelves, and within days, it became a talking point in various circles. Readers connected deeply with the message, especially young people who felt misunderstood or trapped by societal expectations. The body swap element was seen as a clever narrative device, but the real impact lay in the way the story highlighted the importance of empathy. One review read, "This book goes beyond a simple, what if, scenario. It forces us to ask ourselves, what would happen if we truly understood what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes?" Akanes and Minthini's story is both fantastical and deeply human. The book's success was overwhelming. It quickly climbed the bestseller lists, and the trio found themselves inundated with invitations to speak at schools, universities, and conferences. They shared their message of empathy, resilience, and the power of stepping outside of your own perspective to truly understand others. As the months passed, In Each Other's Shoes became more than just a book, it sparked a movement. Schools adopted it as part of their curriculum on emotional intelligence, companies invited Akanes, Minthini, and Priya to speak about the importance of understanding others in the workplace, and social media was flooded with people sharing their own stories of seeing life from a different perspective. One evening, after a particularly successful event at a university, Akanes, Minthini, and Priya sat together in a quiet corner of a restaurant. They raised the glasses, toasting to their journey. "We've come a long way," Minthini said, a smile playing on her lips. "From trying to figure out how to swap our bodies back to now inspiring others to change the way they see the world." Akanes nodded. "It wasn't easy, but I wouldn't change a thing. That experience, however strange it was, made me who I am today." Priya grinned. "And now, we've shared that journey with the world. Who would have thought?" As they sat there, the trio knew that this chapter of their lives was coming to a close, but they also knew it wasn't the end. Their story had taken on a life of its own, and the impact it had made would ripple through the lives of others for years to come. The body swap that had once seemed like an impossible burden had turned into the greatest gift, a chance to not only change their own lives but also to help others change theirs. consult poured in from around the world. They were busier than ever, but with the new team running, journey together, they were free to pursue their individual paths while still supporting their platform's growth. One day, Minthini received an invitation to attend a prestigious international conference in Paris. The event was a gathering of leaders in business, education, and mental health, an intersection that perfectly matched the message of in each other's shoes. Excited, she immediately called Akanes and Priya to share the news. "We've been invited to speak at the World Empathy Summit in Paris," she exclaimed over the phone. "It's a huge deal. Leaders from all over the world are going to be there." Akanes, who had just wrapped up a meeting for DMK, smiled. "That's incredible. It feels like everything we've worked for is falling into place." Priya, equally excited, chimed in. "Paris. Can you believe it? This is going to be a game changer." The trio quickly made plans for the trip. They would not only be speaking at the summit but would also have the chance to network with global changemakers. As the event drew closer, their excitement grew. It felt like a culmination of everything they had worked for since the body swap that had changed their lives. When they arrived in Paris, the city's energy was electric. The streets were bustling with people, and the Eiffel Tower stood tall against the skyline, a reminder of the grandeur of the city. For Minthini, it was her first time traveling outside of India, and she couldn't contain her awe as she took in the sights. Akanes, who had traveled internationally for DMK before, still found himself mesmerized by the city's charm. Priya, ever the adventurer, had been to Paris once before, but this time it felt different, special. The summit was held in an elegant hall near the Seine River, with towering glass windows that allowed the sunlight to flood the room. The atmosphere was vibrant, filled with people passionate about making the world a better place. Akanes, Minthini, and Priya were scheduled to speak on the second day of the summit, giving them time to attend other sessions and meet the attendees. On the first evening, after a day filled with inspiring talks, the trio found themselves at a networking event hosted in a beautiful Parisian garden. As they mingled with leaders from various industries, they noticed an older woman approaching them. Her silver hair shimmered in the fading light, and her eyes sparkled with curiosity. "Excuse me," she said, her voice carrying a refined accent. "I couldn't help but overhear that you are the authors of In Each Other's Shoes. I'm Celeste Dupont, one of the organizers of this summit." Akanes shook her hand warmly. "Yes, that's us. It's an honor to be here." Celeste smiled. "I've been following your journey closely. Your story is truly remarkable. It's rare to find such a unique combination of empathy, business insight, and personal transformation in one message. I must ask, what inspired you to write the book in the first place?" Minthini exchanged a quick glance with Akanes and Priya. It was a question they had been asked many times, but there was something about Celeste's curiosity that felt different. They decided to share the truth, not just the polished, public version of their story, but the real reason behind it. "Well," Minthini began, "it's not something we usually talk about, but our story started with an experience that changed our lives in a way we never could have expected." They went on to explain the body swap, not as a metaphor, but as the real, strange, and transformative event it had been. Celeste listened intently, her expression one of fascination, rather than disbelief. "Fascinating," Celeste said when they finished. "I've met many people in my life, and I've heard many stories, but this is truly unique. What you've done, using such an experience to create positive change, is admirable. I'm glad you shared the full story with me." The rest of the evening flowed with light conversation and laughter, but Celeste's reaction stayed with them. She hadn't been skeptical or dismissive. Instead, She seemed to understand the depth of their journey, and that acknowledgement felt like a validation they hadn't realized they needed. The next day, as they prepared for their talk, the trio felt a new sense of confidence. The room was packed with attendees, all eager to hear their story. The theme of their presentation was empathy in action, understanding the world through another's eyes. They spoke about the personal transformation, how the body swap had forced them to see life from a completely new perspective, and how that experience had shaped the core message of their book. When they finished, the audience erupted into applause. Questions poured in, with people from different walks of life asking how they could apply the lessons of empathy and perspective in their own lives and industries. It was clear that their message had resonated deeply. After the talk, as they walked along the Seine River, basking in the success of the day, Akanes spoke up. "Do you ever wonder why it happened to us?" he asked, his voice thoughtful. "The body swap, I mean. Why were we the ones chosen for that experience?" Minthini nodded, looking out at the river. "I think about that all the time. But maybe it doesn't matter why. Maybe what matters is what we did with it." Priya, walking between them, smiled. "Exactly. We took something completely inexplicable and turned it into something meaningful. Maybe that's the only reason we need." As they continued their walk, the Eiffel Tower sparkling in the distance, they realized that their journey wasn't just about the body swap anymore. It had grown into something much larger, an ongoing story of growth, empathy, and understanding that would continue to shape their lives and the lives of others. Their paths had crossed in the most unusual of circumstances, but now they were walking together, bound not just by the shared experience, but by a shared purpose. And as they stood in the heart of Paris, they knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with infinite possibilities. Body swap experience, while it had brought them closer and ignited a movement, was something they still didn't fully understand. Why had it happened? Was it purely coincidence, or was there a deeper meaning? One afternoon, as they met in Priya's apartment to catch up on their latest projects, Minthini brought up the question that had been gnawing at her mind since their conversation in Paris. "I've been thinking," she said, breaking the silence, "about the body swap. Don't you ever wonder if there's more to it than what we've uncovered? I mean, it feels like it happened for a reason, but we've never really explored why." Akanes leaned back in his chair, his brow furrowed. "I do wonder, actually. It changed our lives, but I've always felt like we were missing a piece of the puzzle. Something that could explain why it happened to us." Priya, always the practical one, looked at them thoughtfully. "We've been so focused on what we did with the experience that we never really looked for answers. But maybe it's time we did." This set off a spark of curiosity in all of them. Over the next few days, they began digging into old journals, revisiting the places where the body swap had first occurred, and even consulting experts in fields ranging from psychology to metaphysics. But none of it provided the answers they were seeking. Then one evening, as they were about to call it a day, Minthini remembered something. "There's one place we haven't looked yet, my grandmother's house. She used to tell stories about things like this when I was a kid. She always believed in the strange and mystical. Maybe there's something there." Intrigued, Akanes and Priya agreed to visit Minthini's ancestral home. The house, located in a quiet village on the outskirts of the city, was old but charming, filled with generations of history. Minthini hadn't been there in years, but as they walked through the gate, memories flooded back. Her grandmother's room was filled with old books, relics, and items that seemed to tell stories of their own. As they began sorting through her collection, something caught Akanes's eye, a small, ornate box tucked away in a corner. "What's this?" he asked, picking it up carefully. Minthini's eyes widened. "I've seen that before. My grandmother used to keep it locked." She always said it held secrets about our family that weren't meant to be opened until the right time. A chill ran through the room as they exchanged glances. This felt like the missing piece they had been searching for. With trembling hands, Minthini opened the box. Inside was a bundle of old letters, a journal, and a strange amulet. The letters were addressed to her grandmother from a person named Devika, someone they had never heard of. As Minthini read the letters aloud, a story unfolded, a story that revealed that Devika had been part of a group that practiced ancient rituals related to the exchange of lives and perspectives. They believed that the only way to truly understand someone else was to live as them, to walk in their shoes. One letter in particular stood out. Asterisk. Dearest Lakshmi. The ritual is rare, but when it occurs, it is never by accident. The exchange of souls happens only when there is a profound imbalance, a need for two souls to learn from each other. I fear that one day, this ritual may touch our family, for we carry the legacy of those who first discovered it. If it happens, know that it is a gift, not a curse, and the knowledge gained must be shared to heal the world. Asterisk. Minthini's voice faltered as she finished reading. They sat in stunned silence, realizing that the body swap wasn't just a random occurrence. It had been part of an ancient ritual that was somehow tied to her family's legacy. Akanes stared at the amulet, a strange sense of connection forming in his mind. So, we were chosen for this. But why us, specifically? Priya, who had been reading through the journal, spoke up. It says here that the ritual happens when two people are on divergent paths, but their lives are meant to cross. The swap forces them to confront their own limitations by living through the other's perspective. It's about balance, about correcting something that's been lost in both lives. Minthini was quiet, the weight of the revelation sinking in. I always felt like I was at a crossroads before the swap. Like I didn't know where my life was going. Maybe this was meant to guide us. Akanes nodded slowly. It wasn't just about us learning to understand each other. It was about helping us find the path we were meant to take. And then using that experience to help others. Priya closed the journal and looked at them both. It makes sense now. The body swap wasn't just a strange event. It was a part of something much bigger, a way for us to fulfill a purpose we didn't even know we had. They spent the rest of the night talking about the implications of what they had discovered. The body swap, they realized, had not only changed their lives but had also set them on a path to change the lives of others. The book, the platform, the empathy movement, it was all part of the legacy they were meant to carry forward. Before they left the house, Minthini placed the amulet back in the box and carefully stored it away. This is part of our family's history, she said softly. But now, it's part of our story too. As they drove back to the city, the trio felt a sense of closure. The mystery of the body swap had finally been solved, but more importantly, they understood why it had happened. It wasn't just about them. It was about the people they would continue to inspire, the lives they would change, and the legacy they would leave behind. After uncovering the truth about their body swap in Minthini's ancestral home, Akanes, Minthini, and Priya returned to their lives with a deeper understanding of their purpose. The knowledge that they had been chosen for something greater gave them a renewed sense of responsibility, but it also opened the door to more questions. What else was part of this legacy? Was there more they were supposed to do? Back in the city, life seemed to return to its usual routine. Minthini was back at college, juggling her studies with the growing responsibilities that came with the success of their book. Akanes was managing his family's business, but the pressures of DMK had become more intense as the company expanded. Priya, meanwhile, had fully embraced her role as the public face of their empathy movement, attending events and working closely with their team at Journey Together. But despite the success, Something felt off. The body swap had connected them in ways they couldn't have imagined, but now, after learning the truth behind it, there was an unspoken tension. Each of them was wrestling with their own inner conflicts, trying to balance the new knowledge with their everyday lives. One afternoon, as the three met for coffee, Minthini decided to voice what had been weighing on her mind. "I've been thinking a lot about the legacy," she said, stirring her cup absent-mindedly. "Now that we know why the body swap happened, I can't help but feel like there's something more we're supposed to be doing." Akanes sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know what you mean. I thought understanding it would bring closure, but now I feel this pressure. Like we have to do more, but I don't even know what that more is." Priya, always the one to look on the bright side, leaned forward. "We've already accomplished so much. We've written the book, started a platform that's helping thousands of people, and we've raised awareness about empathy in ways we never imagined. Isn't that enough?" Minthini shook her head. "It doesn't feel like it. It's like we're missing the next step. The legacy we found, it was bigger than just us understanding each other. It was about something deeper. I feel like we need to dig into that." The conversation lingered with them long after they parted ways. That night, as Minthini lay awake, her thoughts swirled. She couldn't shake the feeling that the body swap had been the beginning of something much larger. If the ritual was meant to correct imbalances and bring people closer to understanding, then maybe their work wasn't finished. The next morning, Minthini woke with an idea. She called Akanes and Priya to meet her at Journey Together, the center they had established as part of their empathy movement. When they arrived, Minthini wasted no time sharing her thoughts. "What if we take the legacy beyond just telling our story?" she said, her eyes bright with excitement. "What if we create a space where people can truly experience what we did, not through a body swap, obviously, but through some sort of immersive experience? A way for people to step into someone else's shoes, even if just for a moment." Akanes frowned, not quite understanding. "You mean like workshops or seminars? We've already done that." "No," Minthini said, shaking her head. "Something more. Something immersive. Virtual reality, maybe, or interactive experiences that allow people to live through someone else's perspective. The body swap gave us that insight. What if we could create something similar for others? A way to bridge the gap between people who come from completely different worlds." Priya's eyes widened as the idea began to take shape. "That could be huge. Imagine if we could get people to really experience what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes, even for a few minutes. It could change how people see each other." The more they talked, the more the idea grew. They could collaborate with developers, psychologists, and storytellers to create an immersive empathy experience. People from different backgrounds, rich and poor, rural and urban, young and old, could step into each other's lives, even if just for a short time. The trio wasted no time putting their plan into action. They reached out to virtual reality developers and started working with a team of experts who specialized in human behavior and emotional intelligence. Within months, they had developed the prototype for what they called the ripple effect, an interactive experience that allowed users to live a day in the life of someone from a completely different background. Whether it was the struggles of a single mother working 2 jobs, the challenges of a disabled student trying to navigate daily life, or the stress of a high-powered executive, the experience was designed to foster deep empathy by immersing users in the real emotions, choices, and consequences of those lives. The first public trial of the ripple effect asterisk was held at a large venue in Mumbai. Hundreds of people attended, curious about what this new experience was all about. As they watched people don the virtual reality headsets and emerge visibly moved, some with tears in their eyes, others deep in thought. The trio realized they had created something powerful. After the event, as they debriefed with their team, Akanes looked around at the faces of those who had taken part. There was something different about the way they were interacting now. Strangers were talking to each other, sharing their experiences, and for the first time, it felt like the walls between people had started to break down. "This is it," Akanes said quietly, turning to Minthini and Priya. "This is what we were meant to do. The body swap. It was just the beginning. We're helping people see each other in a way they never could before." Priya nodded. "We're creating real change. This is the ripple effect." As the night wound down, Minthini felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They had unlocked the next phase of their journey, not just understanding, but actively creating empathy on a larger scale. The body swap had been the catalyst, but this was the legacy they were meant to leave behind. Looking out over the city skyline, Minthini smiled to herself. The journey had been long and filled with unexpected turns, but they had found their purpose. The ripple effect they had started was only just beginning, and they knew that its impact would reach far beyond what they could ever imagine. Akanes Invades Minthini's Shoe Collection with a Twist Episode 3. To be continued.